People aren't broken, and whatever they're carrying, there's always a way forward. That's true whatever's going on for you, and it's true for today's topic. I'm Gary Johannes, solution-focused hypnotherapist, founder of Inspired to Change, and the host of Moving Minds Forward. One condition per episode. What's going on? What's keeping it going? What actually is happening? And what actually helps? Let's get into it. So, men's mental health. This one's a little different because I'm not doing it alone. I'm joined by the lovely Peter Ely, solution-focused hypnotherapist with Inspired to Change, based in Islington in London. Before he retrained, Peter spent 20 years in the security industry, a high-pressure world where stress was a constant and resilience was just expected. Like a lot of men, he learned to push things down and carry on. Stress doesn't work like that, though. It doesn't disappear. It finds an outlet. Peter found his way into hypnotherapy through his own experience of doing that, and now spends his working life helping men do something he spent 20 years not doing, actually dealing with what they're carrying. Some of you will already know Peter's voice. He's my co-host on Inspired Men Talk, a podcast for men who feel stuck, overwhelmed, under pressure, or like they should have life more together than they do. No lectures, no overcomplicating things, just honest conversations about stuff men don't always say out loud. If today's conversation lands for you, that's where to go for more. Before we get into it, I want to say something plainly, because it's the reason this episode exists. In the UK, 76% of all suicides are men. That's not a statistic I want to dwell on, but I don't want to skip past it either, because behind it are men who didn't feel able to say they were struggling or didn't know who to say it to until it was too late. This episode is for the men who are still carrying it, still functioning, still getting on with it, and for anyone who loves them. So this isn't about me explaining men's mental health to you from a script. It's a conversation with someone who's lived the exact patterns we are talking about. 20 years of pushing it down, and now spends his days helping other men stop doing that. If you've ever felt like you should have life more together than you do, or you're not sure what to do with the pressure you're carrying, stay with me. I think you'll find this useful. Let's get into it. So, welcome Peter to our latest episode of Moving Minds Forward, and we're talking today, as we've said, about men's mental health. Peter not only is an expert in men's mental health, he's also a man who's been through stages of mental health and can talk about it from lived experience. So, Peter, welcome. Hello.
Hello, Gary. Thank you very much for having me.
So, Peter, we wouldn't get to the nub of what men's mental health really is. People talk about it a lot. And I guess we all come to it from a different angle and a different forms. One of the things you've said, I know you quite well, we host Inspired Men Talk podcast together, and we'll talk about that a bit later again. Well, one of the things you've said on there many times was there was a single statistic that changed everything for you, and that's 1 in 4 men won't reach retirement age, which shocks me every time I hear you say it. So when did that land for you? What made you realise you've been walking past this and not noticing it?
When the very first time I heard it, I kind of mistook it as being all about mental health, and then I realised it was about physical health as well. And I think I had a recent medical scare, and it kind of really stuck with me then that actually it was both. It was both mental health and physical health.
Right.
because men don't go to the doctor that much or as much as we should. We're not as good at getting to see the GP. We'll wait for things to kind of get to their worst stage. And we do that in our physical health and our mental health.
Do you
And
think mental health actually comes first that stops us going to get that physical health sorted? Or is
I,
the
I
physical health comes first?
no, I do think it is the mental health thing. I do think that's what stops us. You know, we'll struggle through, we'll fight it through. You look at things like the cold and flu epidemic, and you talk about man flu. We did the podcast on man flu, and we did some research. There was some research done up in Canada where men would actually just keep going up, getting up day after day, rather than going to see someone early to deal with stuff.
But
I think we do that in all of our health related issues, or certainly people of my age group do. I don't know about your age group, and you're a little bit older than me, not much, just a little bit.
you
Just
know, Peter, that I'm the oldest.
yeah, just a little bit. I'm not, but I think we've had that different upbringing to people that are being brought up now, and I think
Yeah,
it,
there's definitely a change in the temperature of
yeah,
mental health in younger, particularly quite young men. But you
yes,
spend 20 years in and around the security business, and men's whose jobs it was to look solid, unbothered, in control. So, what did those years teach you about how men deal with their feelings?
well, they didn't is a lot of it.
Well, did they not deal with them, or did they deal with them in other ways?
Well, so can think of a couple of experiences. I was working with a chap on the Olympics, and we were looking after the Olympic Village. And he told me a story of when he was working as a doorman and someone got shot.
Mm,
And he hadn't processed what had happened. That individual got shot with a shotgun and ended up passing away. And that person didn't process that, and that came out at times when we were working. And I think for a lot of men in the security industry, especially if you're a doorman, I think it used to come out in a bit of violence.
mm,
They would look to have a fight where you've worked on clubs, the good doorman look to stop fights. You don't even invite the trouble into your building, right? But people that have unprocessed issues, they're looking for the fight. They're constantly looking for it. And I think that was quite a difficult thing for me to deal with when I was working with those individuals, because I wasn't like that at all.
yeah.
And I think it is that way. People would get angry very quickly. The people that are there to look after you, and they're not looking after you. So I think it shows up sometimes in the security world where you see
Yeah.
people having fights a lot, where a conversation actually can deal with stuff.
So, we're looking at men from every aspect and every age group,
Yeah.
regardless of age, and particularly regardless of industry. But do you see the same patterns in it again? Men coping brilliantly on the outside, still turning up for work, dealing with family, but quietly exhausted underneath.
Yeah. It's a
So
constant
what does
thing.
that man look like when he first walks into your room as a therapist, as a specialist in men's mental health? When you see men, what do you see?
When they first walk in and chat with me, everything sort of feels normal because the barrier is still up.
Right.
And it's the outward persona that they've been putting on for a long, long time is always there. Over time, as they begin to trust and begin to be able to feel comfortable when they're talking with me, that's when things sort of come out, and that's when they become more emotionally aware and are more capable of expressing themselves. And sometimes that expression can be through a bit of anger, or sometimes it can just be having the ability to feel safe and say what they need to say. And whether
So,
that's a cry or whatever it is.
so often it comes out sideways. So,
Yeah.
we know we should talk, and lots of people are telling us to talk, but sometimes it comes out as anger, or we reach for the bottle
Yeah.
or the drugs, or we just shut down.
Yep.
Instead of a man simply saying, I'm not okay, I need to speak to someone, I need to go to GP. What's that about? Why does it come out sideways? What's actually happening to us?
I saw, or I read rather, something really interesting quite recently on that. And it said that anger is like vulnerability, but we don't feel comfortable expressing vulnerability. And so it comes out as anger. And it's our way of kind of saying, I need help, or I need to talk, or I need something, but we don't know how to express it. So it comes out as anger.
So is one man's anger another man's bottle of vodka? And
Yeah.
another man's coping mechanism, which is shutting off or getting depressed or having panic attacks?
Yeah, I think so. And I think a lot of it can be stress related. My journey was alcohol was my crutch. For other people, it can be, as you say, the anger. It can be whatever the addiction is, or just shutting down completely.
So only share what you're comfortable sharing, but can you quickly explain to us where you were and where you ended up, and then how you got better? Very briefly.
Sure. So Irish heritage. So alcohol was kind of a big thing from a young age. Always was the thing that helped me to cope with stress. And then it became a habit. And I went I've been in and out of alcoholism throughout my life. I've managed, in the most part, to manage that myself. And I think after I started training to become a hypnotherapist, I actually understood what was happening and why I was drinking. And then I was able to manage it a lot better. And now I choose when I drink rather than feeling like I have to drink. And I'll still have a beer every now and again. I'll meet my dad and we'll have a pint of Guinness or two. But it's my choice.
Yes.
In the most part, it never used to be that way. It used to be I'd finish work, I'd get off the tube, and a pub was across the road, and it was like, I need to go in there. Not I want to, I need to.
So was there any impactful moments which saying when the only way I can get through this stage is by finding alcohol in your case, but something to cope with?
Yeah. The only way I can describe it, for a long period of time, I would finish work. I would go across to the pub. I'd walk into the pub after work, get my laptop out. I wasn't socialising. I would get my laptop out, do more work while I sat and drank in a pub. And I was like, well, this is how I need to do work. This is how I need to cope with all of the stress that I've got going on. And I look back now and I think, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But that was what I needed to help me get through things.
So in plain English, are you able to explain what actually is happening in the average man's brain when stress goes on too long? Whether it's a stressful job or a stressful relationship or a stressful family or stressful whatever. What takes us into that survival mode?
Yeah, well, we talk about it as a negative thinking kind of thing, right? And we say, when we have negative thinking and negative thoughts, we have anxiety, that all turns into anxiety. We say that that's all stored in our metaphorical stress bucket. And I love that because people seem to be able to understand that thing. And when our stress bucket is full, it only takes a small thing for it to overflow. So it might be that you've just had a little bit of a bad day. It might be that you've had a dodgy email from a client. It might be that someone's, I don't know, like if you're on a construction site, someone's said something or given you the wrong screwdriver and now you've got to climb down a whole scaffolding to climb back up again. And that's the thing that triggers your angry response, right? And that's what happens to us. We get so worked up, a small thing turns us into monsters.
So it's very funny because, I've been doing this a while. I know how the brain works. But today I got to my office. I'd been out this morning to a couple of appointments, and I've come to my office and I couldn't park. Somebody parked right outside my office over 2 bays. So they parked over 2 bays. All the other parking spaces are full up, and I've had to park in somebody else's parking bay.
Yeah.
And I came in, and I've actually broke a cup in the kitchen, getting back about to get a cup of coffee. And it's just like about 5 things went wrong, and I'm like, I'm getting really, really frustrated now. But I also know I've got some stuff going on in my personal life, which has already filled my bucket up clearly.
Yeah.
So I don't care what I pack. I don't really care. If you break a cup, you break a cup. But that is today left me really frustrated.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. And that's me meant to be on top of things. But the little things just keep piling up and you don't see them coming.
No, you never do.
Like,
Excuse me.
having to park somewhere else, breaking a cup, couldn't find the cup and then realised I hadn't washed up,
It is. It's those small things as well, because it's never the big things. Even in security, I always found that when a big incident happened, it didn't matter how you responded. Everybody respected that you responded well and you'd responded.
Yeah.
But it's all the small things. It's like, people turning up a little bit late, people not in the right uniform. These were the things that would kind of build up and make the massive issues. Yeah. And when you look at the big scheme of things, they're not that big of a problem, right? Because someone else was there or you had spare uniform, but it just kept building and building and building.
It's that snowball, isn't it? It starts off small, but as it rolls down the hill, it gets bigger and bigger. But actually, it's still only a snowball.
Yeah.
Melts in the sun.
Exactly so. And it is. And I think that's a lot of that happens when we talk about men's mental health, because men still have this perception that we're the providers. We still have this perception that we've got to go out and hunt, get the food, whether that's doing the job that is hunting or doing whatever the job is. We've then got to provide for the family. We've got all of those things that we have to do, and we've got to keep it together ourselves. And all of that, we're already at a big snowball before things have even gone wrong.
So you say most men don't need years of digging through. So you've said on previous conversations we've had that you don't talk about the past. You sit and talk about who they are.
Yeah.
That's quite big. That's a big claim, that you don't have to spend years of muck spreading. You don't have to go through all of the things you've ever been and ever done to work out how to get better. So, what does change actually look like for you? You've talked about you've changed, and we can talk about other people. We can talk about the science of it. But what's change look like for you?
I think for me, a lot of it's come from acceptance, from understanding how my brain works, because we go through that, right? You taught me all of that, and then I teach that to clients. But by doing that, it helped me accept who I was, why things were happening, and to understand that it was all normal and natural. Because sometimes when you're feeling a bit down, you think you're broken, or you think there's something wrong. Whereas actually, when you understand that that's part of your defensive mechanism, it makes it easier to kind of go, oh, okay, so I can accept that I'm having a bad time. And now I need to work on what are the steps that I need to do to come out of it. And I think it was accepting that I wasn't broken, accepting that this was the way I coped with life. And then I found a new way to cope.
So before that,
yep.
And this is me asking for a friend.
Okay.
Actually, for hundreds of hopefully friends.
Yeah.
What's the first small thing a struggling man can do this week before they accept it? Because often we don't know.
Yeah.
So first thing, if I'm struggling or somebody else is struggling, what's the first thing they can do?
There's so many things out there, and it will be different for each person, I think. But I mean, one of the hardest things is to ask for help. So why not look up a podcast, reach out to a friend. If you haven't got anyone that you trust enough, reach out to a healthcare professional like your GP or one of us. There's Andy's Man Club. There's all these groups that are popping up that you can go and visit, that you don't have to talk at. You can go and listen and become, a part of a group before you have to commit to anything. So I think it's different for every single person, but there's so many options out there. My thing to say to people is the first thing you can do is something, right? Try and do something, take action and find whatever that piece of action is for you.
And I think if I was asked the same question, because there are thousands of things, but if you boiled it all down, really honed it down, it still comes back to taking action. Do something.
Yeah.
But I would put on the end of that, do a positive action.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, that's a very good point. Yeah. Don't go to the pub, right? Because that pub is an action. Yeah. It's a good point.
It's like every action, there's a reaction.
Yes.
But you're right. Just taking a simple action. It might be reaching out and asking someone. We know that's one of the most powerful actions you can take, but that's so big. But what comes before that? Maybe it's getting up and getting a shower. Maybe it's going for a walk.
Yeah.
What do you do? I know what you do.
Well, there's a couple of things I do. I love getting on my bicycle. That's my favourite thing as well.
You ride all round London.
I do. Yeah. And it is my favourite thing to do. And I do it, even if I don't have, I've got a turbo trainer, which is something that I can cycle inside my house. So even if I can't get outside, I still get on a bicycle and I get on cycle. That's my thing. And I say to people, find your thing, right? Because it can be as simple as doing 10 squats, doing 10 press-ups, or as you say, getting in the shower, just washing the grime off of you, washing the kind of...
Or just talking to a friend without talking about anything. Just talk to someone.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've got a last question for you.
Okay.
There's a man sat in his car outside your clinic, not sure he wants to come in.
Yeah.
What do you want him to hear before he decides?
I get the impression from a lot of my clients that they're worried that anything they say might get back to people or might get put out there. And I think the most important message that I say to every single client, and I say it at the very beginning of the very first meeting I have with them, everything that we talk about is private and confidential. Yeah. You're coming into a safe space. You're coming into a space where you can say whatever you want, and I'm there to support you. And I think that's really hard because men don't always know whether or not a space is safe.
Do you think that's not safe because they're not always fearing that you're going to tell all their friends, but also that you might judge them?
Yeah, I mean, I've had that with people that have come to me with addictions. I've actually had that conversation and said, there's pretty much nothing that you can tell me that I haven't done. Yeah. So, I kind of sit there and go, I've been there. I'm there. There's no judgment on this. There's no, because that's really important, isn't it? We sit there as individuals and as men, and we kind of think people are going to think I'm a weak or I'm a failure. I remember it was one of the things that a relative of mine said when he was going through a divorce. He said his partner called him weak, and it made him feel like a broken man.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to let people know that, that's never come enough from us. You're never ever going to be perceived as weak. As I mentioned earlier, it's part of the way our brains work.
So to sum it up, the work, what you do and what men need to understand is you don't have to revisit the past. No. You will never be judged by anybody that you're ineffective, inefficient, weak, or not good enough.
No.
And everything's confidential when you're talking to someone like yourself. But actually taking any action, any positive action, is going to move you forward. You don't
Yes.
have to stay where you are.
You definitely don't have to stay where you are. And look, I think one of the worst things we can do is remain stagnant, right? Even just as an individual, as a species, everything, we always need to move forward.
Yeah.
So just do something.
Okay. Peter, thank you so much for joining me today. And it's been a real pleasure and always a great eye-opener. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Peter, thank you for the 20 years of context and for being as honest about your own journey and patterns as you are about the men you work with now. If anything in that conversation sounded familiar, here's what I want you to take from it. Struggling doesn't make you weak, and it doesn't make you unusual. It makes you one of the huge number of men quietly carrying more than they're saying out loud. 76% of all suicides in the UK are men, and behind that number are ordinary blokes who are functioning, showing up, getting on with it, right up until they weren't. That statistic isn't there to frighten you. It's there because the pattern it describes can be interrupted, and interrupting it starts with one conversation. Here's the thing Peter made clear today. Pushing it down isn't a character flaw, and it isn't laziness or weakness. It's a strategy a lot of men were taught, one way or another. And strategies can be swapped for better ones. The brain that learned to carry everything alone can learn a different way of carrying it. If you take one thing from today, take this. You don't have to have a breakdown before you're allowed to ask for help. You don't need a crisis as your entry ticket. Noticing you're carrying too much is entry enough. So let me speak directly to you. If this is you, you're not weak. You're not failing at something everyone else finds easy. And the same brain that learned to push everything down for years can learn something different. That's not me being kind. That's neuroscience. Understanding what's going on is where it starts. You've just done that. If you found this useful, hit subscribe wherever you're listening. There's a lot more to come. One condition per episode. What's going on? What's keeping it going? And what actually helps? And if this landed for you, go find Inspired Men Talk wherever you listen to podcasts. Peter and I go further into exactly this territory over there, episode after episode. And if you'd like to find out whether Inspired to Change can help you, we have a nationwide network of solution-focused hypnotherapists across the UK, including Peter in Islington. You can find your nearest hypnotherapist, read more about hypnotherapy and how it works for men specifically, and book a free initial consultation at inspiredtochange.biz. The link is in the description below. See you on the next one.